January 10th, 2021. We're at the Superdome for a legacy-defining game between Mitchell Trubisky's Chicago Bears and a Drew Brees-led New Orleans Saints. At stake here is more than just a trip to the NFC Divisional Round, but a shot at a highly coveted honor, the NVP. This is a chance at redemption, to prove all the naysayers both at home and around the country that he was worth the second overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft. For Drew Brees, on the other hand, this was a chance to extend his career with the Saints at a time when it was all but confirmed that this season would be his last. To understand the true magnitude of this moment, let's take a look at what brought all these pieces together. What is the MVP? Why is this game on Nickelodeon? Why is Mitchell Trubisky still playing quarterback for the Chicago Bears? Let's rewind. Mitchell Trubisky has a lot to prove today. Since his tenure with the Chicago Bears began, things have not always been pleasant. Despite a 12-4 run 2 years ago, which saw the Bears' first playoff appearance since 2010 end on a mostly forgotten play, Mitchell Trubisky's abilities the following season could only take the Bears so far, which ended in an 8-8 season. All this despite his excellent offensive statistics. Heading into 2020, Trubisky's status as starter was in doubt, and the Bears held a quarterback competition in training camp between him and former Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles, who the Bears had traded for earlier that past offseason. And though Trubisky ultimately won the starting role heading into Week 1, 2018 Coach of the Year Matt Nagy kept him on a short leash. A leash that eventually led to his mid-game benching in Week 3 against the Atlanta Falcons, after just making a few errant throws. To make matters worse, Trubisky's tremendous athleticism and skills have constantly drawn an unfair comparison to two quarterbacks drafted after Trubisky in the 2017 NFL Draft: Kansas City's Patrick Mahomes and Houston's Deshaun Watson. Since then, Bears general manager Ryan Pace has earned constant criticism, not only for his decision to draft Mitchell Trubisky without telling his then head coach John Fox, but for trading up one spot to do it. But what Trubisky lacked in incredible playmaking abilities, downfield accuracy, and accolades, he more than made up for with his character, having reportedly driven his grandmother's Toyota Camry to dinner with Ryan Pace before the 2017 draft. Trubisky's character just screamed wholesome. It was hard to hate the guy. But that's all noise to Trubisky now. After a poor 2-5 run since being named starter, as well as a hip injury and a Week 10 loss to the Minnesota Vikings, Foles found himself back on the bench while Trubisky was thrust once more onto the breach, eager to turn the Bears season around. And, surprisingly enough, he did. While some critics could contend that the quality of opponents he faced were less than impressive, Trubisky truthers had the Kool-Aid they needed, and with a combination of a 3-3 record and a convenient Arizona Cardinals loss in Week 17, the Bears found themselves as the inaugural 7th seed in a newly expanded playoff format. But the expanded playoff giveth, and it taketh away. While the Bears snuck in at the 7th seed despite their tumultuous season, New Orleans' impressive 12-4 record earned them the number 2 seed. Only this year, that meant they had to play in the wildcard round. And though the pressure Trubisky faced was immense, it was possibly even more so for Saints quarterback Drew Brees. You see, heading into this season and heading into this game, the narrative has been whether or not this was Drew Brees' last run. Brees had a lot to prove. At this point, he was far from his prime, his arm strength had been in doubt, and critics wondered whether he had it in him to take the Saints back to the promised land. For the past several years, the Saints have been legitimate contenders to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, but have come up short in dramatic fashion. We are only 3 years removed from the Minneapolis Miracle, and 2 years removed from an incredibly controversial finish against the Rams in the NFC Championship game. So controversial, it spawned a rule change that offseason that finally added some accountability on the referee's part. Except not really. That brings us to today, the wild card matchup between the Chicago Bears and the New Orleans Saints on children's television network Nickelodeon. You see, another quirk with the expanded playoff format was an NFL agreement to expand its coverage. And what better way to do it than by airing it on the network that brought you everyone's favorite underwater sponge? Complete with wild, animated googly eyes, end zone slime celebrations, and most coveted of all, the NVP, the Nickelodeon Valuable Player. Regardless of where these teams end their season, it was clear whoever held this trophy, this orange blimp, was the real winner. So, with 44 seconds left in the game, the MVP race was a nail-biter, and the winner was soon to be announced. And though the Saints held the lead in points, the Bears held the lead in swagger. Mitchell Trubisky had made some incredible throws that may not live on the stat sheet, but will live on in Bears fans' hearts for time immemorial. Finally, truthers had a play that could erase all the evidence that Trubisky was a bust. Just one accurate deep throw that can completely overrule Trubisky's previous 3 years at the helm. If this wasn't enough for the sacred MVP, nothing was. This moment would either define Trubisky's tenure with the Chicago Bears, or prove that Drew Brees still had it in him to earn a real accolade to his trophy room, and prove his last season would go out with a bang and not a whimper. Welcome to a moment in history.
There it is.
Hey, y'all, we got the trophy right here. Mitch Trubisky is the winner.